dismember that. You guys are fuck yourself. How about that? Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Oh, that was great argument, my friend. Fuck yourself. Great argument. You pussy.
Don't gaslight me! Fuck you!
And let me care about your
Life is beautiful.
You do not care! You don't
That's not coming for somebody who actually advocates for the dismemberment of little babies and little women in the
afraid
womb.
of you!
That's
You
what
are
you
here about controlling
I'm not
women!
controlling
You care
women.
about
You're
controlling
the one
women!
who
You
advocates
don't
for
give a
dismembering.
fuck!
real men save babies. Real men.
Fuck you!
Real men.
Fuck you!
Real men.
Fuck you!
Who is Orlando Castile? Who is Breonna Taylor? Who is Cynthia McKenna? You don't fucking know because you don't give a fuck about black people. Shut the fuck up.
I care about black babies!
No, you care about fucking fetuses. Feed the fucking fetuses. Feed the fetuses. Home the fetuses. Get the fetuses healthcare. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. No, you don't. No, you don't. Shut the fuck up with the hypocrisy.
Abortion offers no opportunity to live. You love the vote. Child
Bitch! Try this!
love the woman and the child.
Fix your lips there.
Love them both, the woman and the child.
Abortion takes away the choice from the human being in the womb. 96% of biologists have confirmed that human life begins at the moment of fertilization. This is a scientific fact.
Wait till your 14-year-old daughter
But we care about the woman and the baby.
Okay, that sounds like a you parenting problem, not a me problem. Like your 14-year-old daughter's pregnant. Okay, I'm sorry, things happen, and I'm not here to judge the fact that people get into real, issues and mistakes in their life, and it's okay. But one sin doesn't cover the other, and that's the hard part about all of this stuff. Is it's like, am I the only one who notices two things? That the people that are pro-life, number one, have their arguments down and they look better, they're more attractive, and they're calmer. But two, is that the people who are pro-abortion seem to only be based off of emotion. Like they're just angry and they want the freedom to kill their kid. And to me, it seems demonic. It seems like a something driving them in the depth of who they are in their heart, because I don't know where the passion comes and why you would feel like you're under attack when it's all people are trying to do is say, hey, maybe stop being such a fucking slut. That's really all they're asking people. That's all they're asking them to be, which is like not even offensive. It's just like, oh yeah, I mean, hey, just don't do that. And then if you're going to, I'm going to give you the freedom to do it, but don't kill your child if you happen to have a kid. Because logically, if you're letting some guy pump loads of semen into you and you're not on birth control and or you didn't take it and or you think birth control is always effective, then that's a you problem again, not a child's problem, and it's not worth killing them. It's like this is where we're at though, Ella, right? I mean, this is exactly how these people are.
No, yeah, they find like so much false empowerment through like this new institutionalized sexual liberation to kill their own children. And that's what I was saying before. It's like they take so much pride in this sin. And like pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. Like you can see in every one of these videos, like they're screaming about it. They're not just like pro-choice, they're pro-abortion, like they want to kill their children. And like what you were saying with the black women, it's so funny because I went up to so many of them and I was like, don't you like realize, and I'm probably preaching to the choir right here with the people watching this stream, but like abortion was literally invented to depopulate the black race because Margaret Sanger was like a known eugenicist. And many of them would be like, what? That's false. Where do you get your information from? Blah, blah, blah. And it was just so funny. And then there's another girl, Tanya Reeves. She was a black woman who actually got killed in her abortion because they left pieces of her baby's parts inside of her. And she was killed after. And, they have nothing to say whenever I bring that up to them because, again, they're just incompetent. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. Bo, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add this. When we were at the the March for Life, it was like basically you could just feel God's presence all around, which there was, of course, the Protestant and Catholic issue I won't even get into. But regardless of where you stand religiously, you could see God being there. And then 2 days later, we go to the Women's March, and it was just the opposite, the dead opposite. And it was just people screaming, whether you go from just the constant use of profanities and that being your only use of logic and argument, to the stuff they were wearing, to the terrible, immoral arguments they were using. Every single part of the Women's March was just demonic and against God. I was in an Uber. I don't know if it was in DC or not, but he was not into politics at all. And he said the difference between Republicans and Democrats is, are you Christian or atheist? And he's not even into politics, and he knew that. He saw that. And, that spoke a lot to me, that even these everyday people are seeing the divide in today's politics.
Yeah, it is bizarre. And I know that you guys continue to go out. We had this, let me see if I can get that there. Yeah, we have this Murderous Blonde here, which I do love. Let's go and let's watch this.
Cells when you're in the womb, and they're up until a certain point.
From the moment of fertilization, you have your own set of DNA. From the moment of fertilization and conception, the baby has its own set of DNA. What eye color it's going to be, all of these things are already planned out. So how is that not a living being already?
Sure, it might have the potential to be a human living being eventually.
Yeah, I think that the conversation about being pro-life and pro-choice has become such a black and white issue and a policy issue. It's about women's rights and it's about the choice. And that's what it boils down to.
But the question is, should a woman really be able to choose whether or not to kill a baby?
Should somebody be able to choose?
To kill a baby, to kill a baby. Should someone be able to run over and shoot people on the street? No, murder is illegal. Okay, well, why is it considered a double homicide when a pregnant woman's shot?
Because she chose to have it.
That's law.
A pregnant woman, she hasn't had the baby yet. It's still just a clump of cells.
So let's say I'm pregnant, I get shot, both me and the baby die, right? I didn't choose for my baby to die, right? Like, someone took that choice from me. And let's say, for example, I got pregnant and then I decided to abort my baby. That was my choice. That's the difference.
Is this nigga serious?
That has no correlation. If a pregnant woman is shot and the baby and her are killed, that is considered a double homicide. Two people were killed. People. Baby mama.
Because the choice was taken away.
I'd hope not. I hope she didn't choose to be killed. Either does the baby. Have you ever seen an ultrasound of an abortion? The baby is rubbing up against the uterus. They don't even let the mom who has the abortion see the ultrasound because they wouldn't go through with the abortion because the baby is rubbing up.
You can.
No, you can't.
Yeah, okay, this makes me so angry, guys, like genuinely speaking, because it takes a vile and a vicious person to want to kill their child, but somebody who's not understanding of what's going on seems to be what the main deception here is that the baby like shrieks and actually pulls away from being murdered like any human would. They feel pain in many stages of the pregnancy. And look, if people want to be, dehumanized to all this and desensitized, and they simply just want to, murder their kid and just say, hey, I think murder should be legal, that's a conversation we can have, right? It's the same thing with at least with euthanasia. They call it state-assisted suicide. Like, they do. Now, I know they try to call it euthanasia and euthanizing and, these types of things, but really this is a form of eugenics, right? And it's a form of suicide. And at the very least, doctors can, on an intellectual level, agree with you that this is a form of self-controlled, state-sponsored suicide. And I respect that because I disagree with it because I think that it's can be abused like anything. I don't think I don't think a person, like, for instance, if you're 80 years old and you're about to die in 4 days from cancer, I personally don't think you're, and you want to have a lethal injection of some sort of opiate or whatever put into your body, that you're, the person who did that should be prosecuted per se. But I also know, when you start making things legal and promoting state-assisted suicide, you get what's happening in Canada, where they're just offering it as an option. They're just giving it, you're 19, you're 20, you're depressed, you've given up on life, and then you end up getting killed. That's why I don't believe it should be promoted or legalized or pushed in this kind of way, because it ends up causing more problems. However, when you go to abortion, this is literally murder inside the womb. And it's like, do I understand, if a mother's about to die and they're in the middle of a pregnancy and they decide to kill the child? Do I understand there's situations where sometimes this stuff might happen? Yes, and we can talk about that. We can have a real discussion about that. But we can't even begin to discuss the reality and the intricacy and the severity of what's happening if we can't call it what it is, which is we can't call it murder. Like you know what I'm saying? Like how can we have a simple discussion about if it's okay, or if there's situations when murdering your child are okay, if you won't even acknowledge the fact that it's murder. Because once we don't even acknowledge that, we can't have the discussion, because all you're saying is that I won't acknowledge the truth. I won't say the truth about it. And so I'm like, well then, hey, then you're not willing to have an intellectual argument. You're not willing to have a moral argument. You're not willing to try to come to a conclusion, because you reject the basis of the truth. Even if you think it's justified, even if you think there are situations where it makes sense, it's still murder, and it's murdering a child. And they can't even acknowledge that, Bo. I mean, is that where they're at? Like, just, it's not murder, that does not matter. Like, they can't accept the very basis of it.
See, I think it's about 50-50. There are a lot of people that do acknowledge the fact it is murder, and they just don't care. They're just terrible people, and sadly, some of them will admit it. And then the other half are people that have just been brainwashed, and I think that comes down to the public school system and the terrible parenting. There's a lot of reasons behind the brainwashing, and so when we're talking about the pro-choice, pro-life issue, we also need to be talking about, where do these arguments come from? Where do they stem from? And a lot of the time, it's being taught by your elementary, middle, and high school teachers propagating this message.
Ella?
Also, I think social media is one of the biggest problems, is specifically TikTok, because if you're just scrolling, first of all, there's live porn on TikTok. And I mean, everything you see is just these influencers shoving this like progressive globalist agenda down your throat, because, they're being paid to do it. And it's like, especially with abortion, because, they pass it off as a woman's right. And so they're like, it's woman empowerment, it's healthcare, blah, blah, blah. So all these like 13-year-old girls are seeing this and having this drilled into their heads, and they're telling everyone, it's just like an ongoing circle. It's like, this can't end until we can like take some kind of power back over some of the institutions in the country that really have this grip on society today.
Yeah, and I think I believe in state-assisted suicide. I just wish some of the politicians would take advantage of it first, right? And they would show us how it's done. So I'd say, exactly. Yeah, I'm also pro after-birth abortion. I just want to start with the people that are legislating it. Before we go any further, I do want to remind you guys about something so important, and that, of course, is my extreme dedication to self-defense, right? I would arm fetuses if I had a chance. I believe the right to self-defense is absolute and applies to every free person. My long-term vision for leisure carry right here is to see that the culture of responsible firearm ownership and proficient concealed carrying expands beyond the tactical cargo shorts and backwards flag-printed sleeves that people love doing. See, for every kind of guy, I believe that you got to still make trips where you don't want to carry. You want to be comfortable in sweats or basketball shorts. And honestly, the average American, I believe, they see tactical-looking gear and think, if that's how you have to do it, then maybe it's not for me. It's just inconvenient, right? They leave the gun in the car and it's not good enough. I've had to, I'm not going to explain, but I've had to, pull a gun out in a couple situations for my own protection, and it was warranted. Now, I want anybody that's out there to be able to carry a gun, women, men, no matter where you're going, no matter what you're doing, which is so vital and so very important. Now, in the midst of all that, this is why you can get these amazing gears. Now, these people have tried to put their holsters inside their drawstring waistband. They try to put it real tight, and it isn't secured or anything. And in the event that you trip or you need to run or flee, it bounces all over the place. And in the event that you ever need to try to draw your firearm, the holster would come out unless you held it down with the other hand. It's unsafe, it's an ineffective method, and it has a high risk of consequences. Thus, you get the clip-on belt, which highlights absolutely amazing thing. Let me tell you a little about this. This is a new sponsor. You may not have ever heard of this before. It's so good. The clip-on belt allows its user to carry their normal holster and firearm inside of drawstring waistbands like sweats, joggers, and other gym clothes, as if you're wearing a belt without the need to modify the holster. You clip your clip on the belt inside your tied waistband and insert your holster as you always do. The concept works for the same reasons as the way thin ice will break when you stand up on it, but won't break if you crawl on it. The COB is a stiff piece of the same kind of material that high-end tactical belts are made from. It works by clipping into your drawstring specifically. And of course, it spreads the weight over the holstered firearm over the surface area. The clip-on belt is made in the USA, uses components that are also made in the USA, and it is a product that you can be proud to own and to show off, knowing that no knees were bent to a foreign entity that hates us. And right now, you can go to leisurecarry.com/offensive, use my coupon code OFFENSIVE to get 10% off. That's leisurecarry, LEISURECARRY.com/offensive, OFFENSIVE. Use my coupon code OFFENSIVE right now to get 10% off. Check it out today. I encourage you so much to support American-made companies, brands, and that also support free speech in the show. And if you want to get something amazing that works in all circumstances, check it out.